Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Thank you so much for joining us for OSheet, another research project. I'm glad you're here. To follow along today, you will need to go to the bit.ly that's listed on the screen. It's bit.ly/ in all caps, NCBOLD, the number 22, and the word research with the R capitalized. So I'll give you just a minute to get there. Feel free to pause the video and come on back when you have this presentation up. All right, fantastic. So I trust that you're here. On the second slide, you're going to see a who am I. So what I'd love for you to do is click on the Bitmoji up here at the top corner that says hi. And when you click on that Bitmoji, you are going to have a form that comes up just so you can get to know a little bit about me, and I can also get to know a little bit about you. Even though we are learning remotely, we can still engage and interact with one another. So I would love for you to do that. Go ahead and pause the video and come on back when you're finished. All right. Thank you so much for getting that done. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to get to know you better. So I am Alicia Ray. I am accessible to you at any time via email, iloveeducating@gmail.com. Love is LUV. I'm also available at the same I Love Educating on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow along on my blog, and I'm looking forward to sharing more about the amazing things that my students are doing. I am a digital learning coach, media coordinator, and AIG teacher at a rural STEM magnet middle school here in North Carolina. So when you click to go to the next slide, you're going to see one Bitmoji that says OSheet. And this is me and my cat, Zeus. I have a white cat that looks very similar to this. So when I saw this Bitmoji, I said, this has to be it. So if you'll click on that Bitmoji for me, it is going to take you to a Google Sheet, because I kind of thought, why teach Google Sheets through slides? So we're going to learn about Google Sheets through Sheets. So I'm super excited because, you just filled out that little who am I form for me. That lets me know who you are. However, everybody else doesn't get to know how amazing you are. So let's do that here. So under networking, you'll see these different sheets along the bottom of your screen. Each of these is a sheet, and the entire collection of sheets is called a workbook. So as I scroll down under the networking sheet, I am looking to come up right now. I'm on number 46. And so the first 45, actually 44 of these, are all folks that attended the NCBOLD live session in the western half of the state. And they are eager to use Google Sheets in their classrooms. So you have lots of folks that you can interact with here. Lots of people that are willing to help. So if that's you, if you're willing to help and willing to learn from others, I would love for you to put your first name and your last name. If you use social media professionally, I'd love for you to add in your social media handle and your email. And then here you'll notice these drop-down bars under role and grade level. If those don't fit what you do, feel free to type in whatever it is that you do. You'll just see a little red triangle up in the top corner. It's totally fine. No problem. Nothing's going to come out and get you because of it. And then grade levels, again, we have a large variety, but that variety is not all encompassing. So if you do something else, please feel free to add that in as well. Then let's think about a fun fact about you. I love getting to know people. You can see my fun fact there at the top and the fun facts of lots of other people who have joined this session. Go ahead and add a fun fact about you, as well as tell me about your most current research projects. If you do research projects in the classroom, what do those look like? I'm going to encourage you to pause the video, take a moment to do that, and then come on back to us, okay? All right, so now you are in part of the club. You may have noticed, if you're not an avid Google Sheets user, or maybe sometimes if you are, you may notice that when I scroll, that top line, those top two rows stay frozen. And when I slide side to side, my first two columns stay frozen. You'd be like, how in the world did you do that? That's so cool. It's fairly simple, actually. You can just go here to view and freeze and tell how many rows or columns you would like to freeze. You can also go here and manually do it by going to that dark gray line, the dark gray border that you see. And when it turns into a hand, when you click that hand, it grabs it and it moves it. So now Karen and I are both going to stay still, right? Pretty cool. So I can go here, click and drag to move it back, and the same with my columns. So that is a really exciting feature of Google Sheets that we don't have in any other Google platform. So I love using those. Now, we are going to focus on the sheets along the bottom, and every few minutes I'm going to have you pause and come back to this 3, 2, 1. So I'd like for you to make this 3, 2, 1 into something that is useful for you. To do that, you're going to click on the little drop down arrow and you're going to click duplicate. When you duplicate, it's going to pop up with a copy of 3, 2, 1, and you'll notice that your copy does not have a protection factor on it, and that's great. So you're going to double click on copy of 3, 2, 1 and put in your name. Let's say my name is Tabitha. And this is going to be Tabitha's note-taking device as we go through. If you choose to use it, feel free. If you have another way to organize your notes, that is 1,000,000% okay with me. Okay, so just know we'll be using this throughout the class. So just know that everything that I covered today is going to be listed under Did You Know? Okay, so if I say you can go protect the sheet, you can create a drop down, you have template tab and so forth. You can do all of that here. You don't have, I'm not actually going to take you through specifically how to do it, but you can come back to the Did You Know and you can click on where it says drop down list and it will give you a link to go find out how to actually make that happen. So it kind of gives you that tutorial that you may be looking for. Just know that that's under the Did You Know tab. So the first thing let's do is look at research notes. If you're like me, the first time I ever allow all of my students on a Google anything and they all have edit access, I get very nervous. I just sit there and I wait because somebody is going to mess it all up. Am I right or am I right? Yes, I'm right. So what I like to do is start with small groups, no more than 6 students at a time. So I have a few students on each one of my different workbooks. And so in this case, I just have it labeled student A, B, C, D, E, and F. And as they're working through, maybe it's notes for the day, maybe I'm doing research with them, maybe it's observations, maybe it's homework, I don't know. Anytime that I'm using this though, I have them go in and I have them write in a column to begin with. Now, you may wonder why in the world would she have them write in a column? That seems different. We're used to writing left to right. Well, you're right, except Google Sheets is set up in a way to where it has it whenever you press enter, like I love sunny days. When I press enter, like our students are going to, it moves them down a row. So if we already have them in rows, and this is the first real experience they've had in Google Sheets, they're going to start writing on top of each other, and then it gets to be a bit of a mess. So the first few times I have them in Google Sheets, I like to have them just in columns, just to help them get used to this is what this looks like. Then I will start to put them in rows. And we'll go over the fact that you can use your left and right arrows rather than hitting enter. It's just that learning curve. Some of you may say, I don't want kids to have that learning curve. I just want to have them jump in. I'm afraid that if they get used to pressing enter, then they'll just continue that practice. And you may be exactly right. You know your students better than I do, of course. So you do what works for you, but this works for me and my students, okay? All right, so moving on to quotes and sources. These are 2 of my favorite ways to use Google Sheets when I'm thinking about traditional research. So this is where I'm thinking about doing a research paper. Students are going and looking online. They're putting quotes into their own words, paraphrasing. They're trying to figure out what their outline's going to look like and so forth. Very, very traditional research, okay? So my students have gone in and they found some quotes on the internet and they're like, hey, this is really important to me about red pandas and why they're endangered. Okay. So they found this quote and yes, they copy and pasted it. They copy and pasted it from this reference. Now, how do I know what reference one is? That comes from the sources on the next sheet along the bottom. And so you'll notice that this source, number 1, is Red Panda, and I have it linked as a website address here. So what I do is I create 2 different columns, one for the address and one for the actual citation, so that students really start to understand that an address is not a complete citation. When I do that way, they start to really understand, but they don't get lost in the citation. Like that web address sometimes can get lost and feel like it's a little much for kids. So I like to leave that web address for quick ease of access as well. Now, somebody had said at one point, hey, couldn't I do some in-text citations here too? Yes, absolutely. If that's something you'd like to do, you just need to go down to this drop-down arrow. You can copy it to a new spreadsheet and make your own copy of this rather than going to File, Make a Copy. If I go to File, Make a Copy, it's going to make a copy of everything. You may not want everything. You might just want this one piece of the research puzzle. And that's fine. It's totally okay. This is for you to pick and choose what you can use, what you would like to use. So when you click New Spreadsheet, then you're going to have the ability to go in and add a column and then just make that column in-text citation and then have them write out what that in-text citation is. So now they're just going to copy and paste that as they move forward. Absolutely. Then under quotes, so that's where my number 1 came from for reference number. It's really my first source. Comments. If you choose to make this your own, you can change that comments to be paraphrasing in your own words, whatever you want to do to make sure students know this is where you're going to take the quote that you just pulled and you're going to put that into your own words so that you're not in copyright trouble, okay? So I like to do this so that it's side by side so the students can really see the difference between the quote and how they've changed it. It's also fantastic for peer editing because at that point the students, their peers can see those the exact quote next to the paraphrasing as well. I am 100% okay with my students pulling direct quotes from text. I explain to them that the best research projects are actually going to have quotes, and we talk about the quotations. I also like it because I want my students to keep the author's intention within their research. So it's kind of like playing the game of telephone. If I paraphrase this quote before I ever write the quote, then I can lose the author's original intention as I move forward in my research paper. So just a thought. Finally, I have this column called paper section. I really have an issue with my students going through and creating their outline after they have finished writing their paper. And this is a way that I'm trying to help them to understand the process of the research is actually more important than their final product in a lot of cases. So it's important that they know that, hey, this quote and this resource and this comment is really best suited for paragraph blank. This one is best here. This one seems to fit organizationally here. And so I can fill these out. The students can go through and say, this is where this goes in my text. The beautiful thing about this is, again, this is why I love sheets. Something I can do that I cannot do in docs and slides is I can sort. So when I sort, it already puts it into chronological order for my paper, into an order that makes sense. And so then if a student says, oh, okay, well, actually, this sentence here in row 4 would make better sense if it's before the one in row 3. So then I just teach them to click and drag, and it gives them the ability to kind of move around their paper, their rough draft. And then all they have to do is copy and paste what they put into their comments or their quotes with quotation marks around it right into their research paper, and it gives them some more fluidity. This is the same thing we used to do with the paper rough draft. It's just now digital. So what I would love for you to do is I want you to take a moment, go back to your 3, 2, 1. So I'm going to go back to Tabitha, and I'd like for you to write either one thing that you can use or share, one thing you found interesting, or if you still have a question, I'd love for you to add it there. Pause the video, do that, and come on back. Okay, welcome back. Now you may notice as we go through here that there's all of these that are all of our sheets that are listed here, they all have a lock beside it. And they have the lock there because they have been protected. If you go back to the Did You Know, you'll see how to protect the sheet. But that protection is very, very important in that it keeps students from messing with other students' work. And it also prevents them from deleting or modifying anything that you have put in. You just have to delete the range or sorry, not delete it. Wow. You just need to protect the range or the entire sheet, however you want that to work. And you can protect the sheet using just you and one other student, or you and 2 or 3 other students, so that just those students can see the information. It's pretty awesome. It's one of the first things that I actually teach my students to do when we do research in sheets, because I want them to know that whatever information they're collecting is not going anywhere. So let's talk about using some templates within research. If you'll notice, the quotes and sources was very abstract, and maybe that's not a place where you're ready to start. Maybe you want them to answer specific questions about things. So you can do that here with this template. So this is about Hamilton because I'm obsessed with Hamilton the musical, have been for years, absolutely love it. So maybe I want students to go through and research Hamilton, Washington, Lafayette. So I just want them to find basic information, birthday, death information, why there was famous. I always like for them to give me something that's more than just research, but applying it in some way. So how would history have been different? And then, of course, something interesting, just so I can keep them engaged. So here, all I did was I highlighted and went to my paint bucket and I changed the color, okay? I did that in different cells and different columns. I even did it in rows, and then I fixed these here. And then to make this a big box, I went in and I merged my cells from B2 to D4. I just clicked that merge cell and it made it one big cell. That's something that you can easily do. This is a basic template, a very basic graphic organizer, but let's keep on sliding and go to the Innovation Engineer sheet. This is an independent study sheet that I do with my AIG students that allows them to work independently of me because I do wear so many hats. So each of my students gets this sheet in the same workbook. So yes, I have one workbook that is AIG Innovation Engineers, and then there's what we would think of as a tab, but it's actually a sheet along the bottom with each student's name. And so instead of it saying global weather, geometry, scavenger hunt, and so forth, it would have their first and last name. And that sheet belongs to them. They go in and they protect it so that only they and I have the editing access to it. And then they can go in and just run with it. They add in their name, their grade level. We have a 6-block schedule at my school, so they add in their 6 classes. Then they share with me what their project idea is and what they need from me. They share their audience, when they expect it to be done, what they will do with it when they finish, and how will they show what they learned. Once they filled out that independent practice, I can go in and look at it and give them the green light to go ahead and move forward. One of the ways I love to give them the green light is to actually click on the drop-down arrow and change color, and I can actually make it green. And so then on their they're going to see their name and it will be green. And they'll be like, oh, Miss Ray's seen it and she's good with it. I love using different color schemes to help students keep up with where they need to be. And that's something that's in the Did You Know, and I'll show you how to set that up. Once they have the go-ahead, they can go into their launch plan, which is their design thinking plan. And so they look, listen, learn, and when they're finished, they put a check mark and they share any information that I may need to know about that look, listen, learn, kind of notes to keep them updated. And then they go to ask tons of questions. When they finish that, they check it and give me details, etc. Once they've gotten to create prototype, they've checked everything off, they bring their prototype to me, and then we go through and highlight and fix together. Okay? So these are just examples of different templates that you could use, different graphic organizers, and using sheets to do this allows you so much more flexibility with check marks and such. You can black out or brown out or red out or blue out or whatever, any section that you don't want them messing with. And then, there's always the protect feature, and it keeps it looking nice and neat. So go back to your 3, 2, 1, take a beat, take a pause, and go ahead and fill out one more of these sections, okay? All right, excellent. So we've gone through two big sections. So now let's look at state research and diseases. So what happens whenever I have a student that's doing some amazing research like this? So I'm going to click on this disease chart. And I had a 7th grade teacher, social studies teacher, talked about epidemics and pandemics. And this was the disease chart that students did research with, okay? Fantastic. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. It was beautiful. The students learned so much. I loved watching this happen. I loved participating in this research and seeing kids get excited, especially, with COVID going on, they're living pandemics and epidemics. So this was a great learning opportunity for them. As we got to thinking, though, we said, first of all, the teacher he's got 70, 80 kids in his classes. So he has like 80 of these sitting in his Google Drive. So that was an issue. Even using SpeedGrader and Canvas, that still took a while to go through 80 of these. It was a lot, right? And so we said, how can we simplify this? So we went in and we made it into a sheet. And making it into a sheet gave us more flexibility. So whenever we put it into Google Sheets, not only does every student work on the same Google Sheet, but we also had the opportunity to learn from one another. Those organic conversations that happen, oh, I had more students die of polio than you had a cholera or whatever, right? And so then you can go through and you can sort, you can find trends, you can have conversations about how was the disease discovered? How are more diseases discovered now than in the past? Why would that be happening? They can even take this sheet, share it with the science teacher, and have full conversations about which body system does this impact. That's 7th grade curriculum right there. There's lots of things we can do with this. So basically, this allows more than one student to learn about each individual disease. And so students can come in and they can, of course, protect. So if somebody wants to do leprosy and they're working on that and they don't want anybody else messing with their stuff, understandably so, then they can go in and protect that one row for leprosy, and they have the access to go in and make changes, but their peers cannot. Same thing with state research. This is the same idea. This is where you want to find the same information about multiple topics, okay? So once again, you can do this with state names. You can do this with, oh my goodness, just vocabulary. You can do this with battles in a war. You could do this with different countries. You can do this with counties within within North Carolina. There's so much that you could do with this. Just think of any topic that you're wanting the same information about multiple topics. You can do this in ELA with characters in a text, right? And so you can talk about their different behaviors and what they did and why they did it, what was the motive, what was the evidence in the text, and so forth. So take a minute. Let's go back. I'm going to be Tabitha again. And something within that idea that we just shared, I'd like for you to pause the video and go ahead and put in your information there. Welcome back. So now we're going to talk about two different sheets that allow you to gather information kind of as a curation device. So this is a geometry scavenger hunt, and the sheet next to it is a global weather, basically a recording device. So a lot of times we get kind of caught up in this idea of research being something online or something that is in a book. However, research is observations, it's everything. So there's a lot of different facets to research, and a scavenger hunt is one way to do research. So in this research, I was thinking about when I taught lower grades and I had kids that would come to me and we do a geometry scavenger hunt. And they would come to me and they would tell me, Miss Ray, I found a rectangle. And I'm like, oh, great, fantastic. Can you tell me about your rectangle? Yeah, it's right here. And they'd point to a cinder block on the wall. And I would say, yes, I'd affirm this. You are so right. Very good. It has 4 sides, 4 right angles. Opposite sides are congruent and parallel. Fantastic job. And they're like, yeah, thanks. And so they'd write it down and they'd move on. They keep looking. 30 seconds later, next kid, Miss Ray, I found a rectangle. Great. What rectangle did you find? And they point to another cinder block. And this kept going. And before the class was over, I had 20 different cinder block rectangles, right? And so I wanted to have a way where students would know, like, hey, once that particular object has been found in a scavenger hunt, it can't be used again. There's multiple examples of rectangles around this room. So we've been using this one in our math classes. And the key is that if someone has already named the item, you have to find another. And so we use this as either a descriptive exercise where students have to actually describe to us specifically what it is they found, or our school is a STEM magnet middle school and we allow phones as a BYOD option. And so we have our students take pictures and they can import their pictures here into their spreadsheet. The other thing that they could do, of course, if they have a Chromebook that has a webcam on it, they can always insert using the Chromebook webcam. So let's say that they find something that has a volume of less than 25 cubic meters. So they're going to go up to our insert button and they're going to go to image and they want to put that image in the cell. It needs to go in the cell, not over it. Over it's going to make it a lot larger and it's going to cover multiple different areas of the scavenger hunt. I just want it to go in the cell. So when I click on in cell, now I have different options here along the top. And again, I can upload it from a device. I can go to my camera and use it there. If I have put my picture if I've uploaded my picture into my Google Drive from my phone or whatnot, then I can pull it from there. There's lots of different options here. But the point is that they can insert the image right there into the cell itself, which is pretty cool. Once that object has been found, somebody's going to have to find something else. Now, this isn't just geometry. This is an example. But I could do a figurative language scavenger hunt and use poetry of all different kinds. And once you've found an example of alliteration, if you've found an example of a simile or hyperbole or, whatever, you can go and put that information here into the scavenger hunt. And this is something you can keep going for multiple days and weeks. You can have it going throughout the entire unit. Anytime you want to find something throughout the room in a physical space, a scavenger hunt is a great way to do that. And you can use, of course, Google Sheets in order to collect and curate that research. Same for global weather, the next sheet. So here in global weather, you'll notice that this is something I can share. It's very basic, basically like a one-liner, and I can share this anywhere in the world I want to share it. So I have a school, city, state or province, country, and then I have current season. My students we connect with a school in Australia frequently, and my students love the fact that right now we're going into fall while they're going into spring. And it always trips my kids out to think about the fact that their seasons are opposite from ours. And so we love having those conversations with students. And then we have our high temperature and low temperature. I did put in Fahrenheit. If you wanted to have yours in Celsius and then have your students convert that to Fahrenheit, that is absolutely your choice. Again, this is a situation where you can click on the drop-down arrow, go to copy to a new spreadsheet, and you can use this and edit it in any way that you'd like. Here on weather conditions, I did another drop down because I don't want 1,500 different weather conditions. I'd like to be able to graph 6. And so then I could talk about global weather patterns with this. I could talk about how the jet stream moves these different weather conditions. I can talk about here in the U.S., weather moving from west to east and so forth. So I love this example of global weather, and it can just keep on going as long as I'd like. One thing that someone had suggested is, why don't we put a date in there? Well, of course, why don't we put a date in there? So if I were to remake this, I would come over here to the side and I would right click on it and insert a column to the left and put in here the date. Okay, so that is definitely an improvement, and any of these are available for you, and you make it whatever improvements it is that will work for you and your students. That's the whole purpose of them being here. So take a break. Let's go back to our Tabitha, go be Tabitha, or whichever sheet that you created there. Go ahead and put in another note about something you can use, something you found interesting, or perhaps you still have a question. Go ahead and put that in and pause me and come back when you're ready. All right, welcome back. So the last thing that I have to share with you today is an amazing add-on for Google Sheets that's called Template Tab. If you'll remember, I actually talked about innovation engineers and how I created a tab or a sheet along the bottom for every student that was in my AIG classes. Well, I don't have the time to go in and put 45 names along the bottom, right? None of us have that kind of time. I like to work smarter, not harder. So instead of clicking on my drop down arrow and click and duplicate and putting in the student's name 45 times, I'm not going to do that. Instead of that, I'm going to do a template tab. So I'm going to delete that page so that it doesn't get confused. And template tab here, it shows you, there's a tutorial video and there's a link. So rather than me showing you how it works, like in real time, I want you to go watch that video and you can see exactly what it does. But basically you put in your roster. You can pull this from your PowerSchool, your student system that you're using. You can put in here, maybe it's not names that you want along the bottom of your students. Maybe it's battles of a war. Maybe you want different elements from the periodic table. Maybe you are looking for characters in a story or whatnot. So we're putting our information here in roster. Those are just simply, what do I want to be the name of my sheets along the bottom, okay? For my innovation engineers example, I wanted it to be the students' names. Then you'll see real small down here, it says put template here. That's where I just literally copy and pasted this right into my template, okay? When I did that, then I go and I click on add-ons or extensions, whichever one it says now, and I go to Template Tab by Alice Keeler, and I run Template Tab. When I run the Template Tab, it's going to create for me a new sheet for every single student that looks identical. It's just like going to the copier at school and making 25 copies of a worksheet, but now it's digital. And so instead of having 45 different innovation engineers workbooks within my Google Drive, I had one workbook with all 45 students. So all the information was right there in the same place, and I could use that rather than trying to go in and hunt for every single student. Again, we could use colors to let us know if we were ready to be checked or if we were stuck on something. We definitely use colors a lot. So I love Template Tab, and that's something that I highly recommend with any of this information. Anytime that you want to use Google Sheets and use it in a way where all of your students are in one place, but that idea of giving editing access to the entire thing makes you panic a little bit, I would absolutely use Template Tab and then go in and protect the sheet so that other students can't mess with that particular child or children's work. So the last thing we're going to do to wrap up, I'd like you to go back to your 3, 2, 1, and whichever thing it is you've not filled in, go ahead and fill that in. All right, terrific. Well, I really do hope that you have enjoyed OSheet, another research project. Just so you'll know, when we go back to the presentation, back to the actual Sheets presentation, the 4th slide has my contact information on it again if you should need to get in touch with me for anything. If you have any questions or concerns, you can also click here with thoughts and share any of those questions or concerns with me. If you put in your email address, I can get back to you there. Finally, I want you to know that you also have 6 different, we'll call them notebooks, digital notebooks that are here in your slide deck. And each one has 4 different ideas that you can share with your folks at school, or if it's something extra you'd like to use. There's all kinds of information. We went over basically the top row, but the bottom row has got some great information on how to use Sheets in your classroom as well. So feel free to go through those. Thank you again so much for joining us. I hope that you have a wonderful afternoon, evening, or morning. Have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.